What's going on, fellow musician? Welcome back to another producer's channel and welcome to my new studio. And as you probably can see in the background, it's completely full with boxes and it's completely messy. It's also really reverberant. I don't know if you can hear it via this small mic here. And yeah, this is going to be my new studio. Another producer. Okay, so I unpacked a few boxes and there are so many left, but let me quickly explain to you what I'm planning to do. In my old apartment, I had only one room, which basically was my bedroom, my living room, and of course also my home studio. And even though I could have done something to acoustically treat the room, for me it never was worth it to invest in proper acoustic treatment. However, now that I have a dedicated room for music production and filming my videos, I think it's time to make it right. And that's exactly what I'm starting with right now, because in my second to last video, I shared with you a few books about mixing and mastering. And in each one of them, one of the first chapters is about setting up your listening environment and how crucial it is to be able to hear what you are doing. By the way, of course, I'm no acoustic professional or something. I'm just applying what I think is worth it and what I came across during my research. And hopefully you can take away something for your own home studio. That would be great. So my first step was to measure the room, and as you can see, I did it really professionally. With these measurements, I created this floor plan to determine where I place my listening position. And you are probably wondering now what this is down here. Unfortunately, my room is not rectangular, as it would be better for a studio room. This here is a window, and these three indentations are doors to the backyard and the two adjacent rooms. This is of course not that advantageous, but nevertheless I have to work with what I have. Since I can't use the area on the bottom right side, I can only place my listening position somewhere in this red rectangle. To find the optimal listening position, there are a few general rules. The first one would be to achieve as much symmetry as possible. In my case, this is probably up here on the center axis of the room, surrounded by these three walls. The second rule is that you should look in the direction of the narrower wall. And the third rule is that you should sit 38% of the length of the room away from that wall. That means, according to these general rules, I should sit somewhere here. The fourth rule is that you and the speakers should form an isosceles triangle where each side has the same length. And with this, you have already found the best listening position in your room. But sometimes that doesn't have to be true, and on my research I stumbled across this great YouTube channel called Acoustic Insider, where Jasko shares all his pro knowledge about room acoustics. He has also developed his own technique for determining the best listening position in a room, the so-called bass hunter technique. I wanted to try it out, and so I placed one of the monitors in the corner of the room and connected it to my interface. Picked out a few songs with a lot of low frequencies and listened to them at different places on the middle axis of the room. I marked the place where the low end was best balanced for me, and funnily enough, the position with the best balanced low end was exactly at the listening position defined by the general rules. I was surprised how extreme the differences were when you move just a few centimeters further back or forward. This technique is incredibly simple and does not require any other equipment like a measuring microphone, so if you are interested, you can find a link to it in the video description. But since I was curious how exactly audio behaves in my room, I bought a measurement microphone to measure the frequency response of the room. For this, I placed the microphone at my listening position at the height of my ears. The measurements can easily be done with the free program Room EQ Wizard. The best way is to take several measurements from slightly different positions and possibly also separately for the right and the left speaker. However, I have simply taken two measurements from the same position for both speakers to make it easier. In Room EQ Wizard, you can then view the sound pressure level graph. It looks a bit wild when you look at it in that much detail, so you can clean it up with smoothing. Even with 1/48 of smoothing, you can get a clearer picture of how audio is behaving in your room. But to get a clearer picture of how we humans perceive sound in the room, we can use psychoacoustic smoothing. This already looks much better. With the button on the lower left side, you can summarize the measurements to an average. This is the curve I will compare the measurements with after we have treated the room acoustically to get a comparison of the before and after. But there are more helpful functions here in Room EQ Wizard. For example, you can create a waterfall graph. This graph shows you the decibel per frequency over time, so basically how the different frequencies decay in a room. A comparable graph is the spectrogram, which basically shows the waterfall graph from above. What's really great about the Room EQ Wizard measurements is that you can easily save them and share them with others. For example, on our Discord server, link is in the description. All right, so finding the listening position is the first thing that you have to do if you want to build a home studio like this one. I did this with some general rules, and then I more or less confirmed this listening position with the bass hunter technique by Acoustic Insiders. Afterwards, I made a few measurements with Room EQ Wizard to get a better picture of how this room responds to audio. And normally you want a flat frequency response. And in my measurements, you could see that there were a few really steep dips and also some enhanced frequencies that you, of course, want to eliminate. Therefore, and you can see it in the back already, I bought a few materials to build my own absorbers. And if you want to see all of the stuff and how you build them yourself, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be informed whenever I upload a new video, because in my next video I'm exactly going to talk about how I built my own absorbers and how you can too. So I hope to see you in the next one, and until then, have an absolutely awesome time.